Welcome to More Lore, a companion and carryover from season 10, episode 7 of Devil's Trap podcast. Liz has more to share.
That's why it's more lore, you get it. So, this is also something good for Valentine's Day. It is that season if you're listening in real time. And so, we're going to talk about magic and poison. And we are still in the 1600s in France. So, we haven't gone away from there. So, as a reminder, my main sources for this are City of Light, City of Poison, Murder Magic, and The First Police Chief of Paris by Holly Tucker. These ladies have really long names for their books. Strange Revelations, Magic, Poison, and Sacrilege in Louis XIV's France by Linwood Molinaire. I listened to people introduce her, give lectures today, and I'm still going to screw up her name every time I say it. And there is also The Affair of Poisons, Murder, Infanticide. Yeah. But that feels like when you make somebody feel like a baby, not when you're killing a baby. And they're talking about killing a baby. Infanticide. Yeah, I think. Yeah, and Satanism at the court of Louis XIV. And the rest will be in our show notes. So, again, according to Molinare, there were 3 neighborhoods where groups of the underground criminal magic trade lived and hung out. The group we are talking about lived in the northern suburb Villeneuve neighborhood, so well known that the women with husband problems were told to solve it with a soup from the Rue Saint Denis, which is a street in there, which is still listed as a street that tourists should not go to. So the villas there, they all had these walled gardens so people couldn't see in. So it was a very cool place to do stuff that was a little shady. And it was also far from the police in central Paris. So before the Affair of the Poisons, it was in vogue to visit with fortune tellers, and both noble folk and commoners would visit, or if you're rich enough, they would come to you. It was kind of depending on things, right? Everybody kind of had some shops, or they had carts where they would be doing one thing and doing another. Or so the noble people would say, I need a face cream. And so someone would come and bring them a face cream and then be like, would you also like some poison? Just how things work, right?
It's upselling.
Exactly. So yeah, the the MLMs of poisoning. So it was, however, viewed poorly by the church, which was the church and the state were pretty entwined at this point too. It was a Roman Catholic church, and the church viewed charms and spells as idolatry or worse, blasphemy. And in general, demon summonings are thought to be sacrilegious. I mean,
that
typically,
is pretty
I
common
think
thread
so.
in
I think in
Christianity.
most of their things, they say summoning demons is against stuff. But so let's talk about the magic first. So spells could be simple spells, usually made up from Christian imagery, some holy language, and some nonsense words. Like to cure a toothache, you would touch the tooth while saying "galbus, galbus, galdus, galata" 3 times during mass. And to remain So you say that while you're holding your tooth while you're in church, and then your tooth stops hurting. It's exciting. And
it is.
yeah,
I don't remember
it
that
sounds
one.
like Gabba Gabba Hey. So I think maybe that's what the Ramones were doing.
Oh, okay.
There's another one. If you want to remain impervious to any weapon, you need to get up in the morning and say 3 times while still in bed. And then 3 times after you get out of bed, I arise in the name of Jesus Christ, who was crucified for me. Jesus, please bless me. Jesus, please guide me. Jesus, please govern me well and guide me to eternal life. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then weapons cannot hurt you.
Huh.
That's what they said. So, okay. So, more complex charms than that, though, did require the help of an ordained priest. So, the parishioners watched priests do the host transformation during Mass. So, logically, it followed because they had the magic to do that. They had magic to do other things, right? For example, if they recited the Gospels over the head of a supplicant, then their prayers would be answered because priests were magic. Right. They also sold ritual items on the side for extra cash because they weren't paid a lot because they were priests. So, yeah, these things were ritual items, and they could be crucifixes, candles that were burned during the Mass, holy water, artisanal holy oil, but especially the Eucharist was thought to be powerful, right? So a host that was turned into something like during Mass would just be passed around.
Have you seen, so there's an Amazon ad that's been popping up in mine and some friends of mine feed recently that you can buy mini disposable to go um the oh my gosh, for the communion wine
Oh,
cups packages. And the Eucharist just reminded me, and that's terrible
oh,
but funny.
interesting.
So
They think
sorry,
that that's
that's my
something you need to purchase. So, yeah,
what?
during this affair, 47 priests were implicated and arrested and like went to
Oh,
various, they did various things to them. When
yep,
they were picked up,
bad.
several had copies of Incuridium Leonis Papae, which was not how you say that, but whatever. That is a grimoire
Yeah.
with love spells, demonic ceremonies for marriage or treasure hunting, and rituals to kill your enemies. To be fair, like these
What?
priests fucked. Like they had mistresses and kids. There's like stories of one of them like throwing his kids over the river and sacrificing them to Satan.
Sorry. These priests fucked, is what you
Well,
just said.
they
I
did.
just wanted
I'm just saying they're like, I mean, unless like it's a leap to go from fucking to I have a book of demonic spells. Like that's a leap. But I'm just saying they weren't like
I mean, it's fine. I'm just
the
saying,
most
like,
pious of
sure.
fathers. You know? Yes, yeah.
I'm
Okay.
hearing you. I'm hearing you.
Yes.
It was just
All
funny.
right. So between the sorceresses, because that's what they were called. They were called sorceresses, and I would
Mhm.
really like to bring that word back. Like
That's
we
pretty
all
cool.
like. I mean, maybe it's
Yeah.
just 'cause it's very hard to spell, especially when you write it in plural. And it took me. So maybe that's why
Yes.
witches is more in vogue. But I think it sounds better. I think I would
I
be
agree.
more afraid of someone who was a sorceress than I would be of a witch. So, but
Yeah.
between the sorceresses, the magicians, and the priests, you could buy cures for headaches, leprosy, pimples, bad breath, labor pains. But also, like, if you're on the street and you're like, I think I have leprosy, do you go to a witch? I don't.
I mean, I don't know. Do you not have a lot of options at this time
I think
frame? I don't know.
like did you just know someone who had leprosy? Like why did you have to keep this in your stock? Right? I am concerned about
Good
that you
question.
had enough of a
Yeah.
population that you had to make the anti-leprosy spell.
Like we had to, like, you don't have to stockpile something if there's
Yes,
not a
somebody
demand.
demanded this, right? So, all right. So, addition to that, there were unguents to whiten complexions because pale faces were like really in vogue then. Powders to whiten teeth because they
Mhm.
didn't have toothpaste. So, dyes
Oh
to
yeah.
cover the whites in one's hairs. Oh, you should let that go, lady. But all right. So, charms that generated lifespans of 166 years. It's very specific about that. There's also the l'or portable, which was portable gold, and that could relieve lethargy, ulcers, or pretty much a lot of other things, right? So those were sold to like the fanciest
Hmm.
clients, and portable gold, I don't know what was in it, probably a toad. So there were also
Portable
portable gold.
gold.
Yep.
Interesting.
There are also health amulets and charms, wealth amulets, gambling charms were very popular. Also, something you could buy from them was a cowl, which is the thing that sometimes comes out of a baby's head when they're born. And so they would be made into magical parchment and used to ward off the evil eye. They also guaranteed
Oh.
lawyers victory at court. And if you put one on, it would render the wearer irresistible. So if you walk around with a baby cowl on you, everyone's gonna love you. I just try that.
Hmm.
And I was also it's like only like 1 in 80,000 babies are born with that, right? And so where were they getting all of these? It's very interesting. And so I think people were making up like this is a cowl, and it was like
I'm
tissue,
sure.
right?
Oh, I'm sure.
So you
Yeah.
could also buy fetuses. They were thought to bring good fortune. Both the educated and the non-educated were convinced that the bodies of newborns, whether stillborn, aborted, or murdered, immediately after they were born, had mystical properties. They all liked a baby. You can. I like this one because of the name Pistole Volant, and that is a magical coin that could be spent repeatedly and always reappear in your pocket. But they also had something which was the name de
Oh, okay.
whatever, Hand of Glory. When we've talked about Hand of Glories on the show,
Yeah.
this is a different one. So instead of being able to get yourself into a
Hmm.
house, this one would double the amount of gold or silver placed beside it. but it could only guarantee like a certain amount of times. And to get that, it involves skinning a mare in heat and then putting that like got hide into a pot, and then the pot, and you can't haggle for the pot, and then like you buy the pot, and then like you put the mare in it, and then like a snake appears, and then you tell the snake you'll do whatever it wants. Yeah, that's a lot. But yeah, that's
Complicated.
why it was so expensive. So yeah, I
Well,
mean,
yeah.
that's why only the richest people did it. Lavoisier, she charged a customer 50 louis d'or, which I think is 50 gold pieces, and an amethyst ring to make them one.
Yep.
Okay. So spells to find treasure were also very popular. They believed that there was this whole like thing that happened about 20 years before the affair where all these people revolted because they didn't like monarchy or some craziness like that.
Yeah.
Crazy people rebelling against authority. But they thought that they buried a bunch of treasure by the palace. So one of the ways that you could do that would be you would have to be standing exactly where the treasure was though. And you would strike the ground 3 times with your left heel and say, Sadie, Satani, Argy, Fons, Toribus. Come to me, Ceradon, will be called Seriatur. And then you click 3 more times. And if there's any more treasure than you, then something will whisper it in your ear, which I do not like. Like,
That
I was
sounds
like, why is it?
creepy.
I
I
like, you
don't
could
like
like
that.
write it down. You could have a sign, like maybe a bell. Like,
Anything.
why?
Don't pss, pss, in my ear.
No,
I don't want.
pass.
No.
I don't think the
No.
treasure's worth it. All right, you could also get demonic conjurations. And so they would call up malignant spirits who had to be compelled to cooperate. But if the person doing it didn't have the skills, like their life and soul were in danger and things could just go awry. According to the Book of the Conjurations of Pope Honorius, which was one of the grimoires they found with Voisin, the conjuration of the demon Bacher, possessor and master of hidden treasures, would bring great riches, but it could only take place on a Wednesday between midnight and 3 a.m., standing within the safe confines of a large circle traced on the ground. The necromancer was to present a black crow as payment to the demon when it appeared. It is not specific if the crow was alive or dead. If you kill a crow, you're evil and you don't deserve your demon. So Bacher then would appear after the necromancer intoned. It goes through his whole thing, really. I conjure thee, blah 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 blah. So you can only do that on a Wednesday. If the necromancer and his clients preferred to search for treasure on other days of the week, the grimoire, oh, that's a hard word to say, included conjurations for summoning the demon Aquiel on Sundays and the demon Akam on Tuesdays. So there were different demons for different days of the week. I mean, they all had to keep a schedule. I like that. It's organized.
Yeah, they have their shifts. It's fine.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that people went to magicians for though was the love magic, right?
Of course.
Of course. So men were
Bow,
largely
chicka, bow, bow.
but really it was because of money, right? So men were into it to get into socially or beneficial relationships,
Yeah.
while the women wanted out of their abusive marriages that they were forced to be in because divorce was illegal.
Mhm.
So if you were able to get a divorce, you were often forbidden from marrying again. And so they're just really hard to do if they didn't like them. Also, the members of the nobility who sat in the Parliament of Paris enacted a series of regulations that extended their authority over the marriage and inheritance rights of children and women, which helped establish the networks of robe families that ensured that offices remained within family patrimonies. So really making sure nobility stayed with nobility, and all the people who were in power stayed within power, and they didn't fuck outside of that and So love magic was then used to defy the patriarchy and to really help people get out of these marriages. Madame de Verrou contracted Voisin to bring about the death of her husband and to win the love of a certain abbe, which is a priest at the same time. So I say calm down, lady. You don't need to marry a priest. It's fine. Like if he doesn't already love you, like just take one, right? Get rid of the husband, and then let's see what happens, right?
Yeah.
I mean, just be greedy. So they also made these like love potions enemies of the state, right? So they're not only are these sacrilegious because they're idolatry and they're messing with church, but they're also going against the state because they're going against all these predefined systems that we have in place, right? So no one liked it, but everyone did it. Everyone said no one liked it, but everyone did it. So love magic.
I feel like everybody just thinks everybody else likes it, and so they don't say things in situations like that. It's just like it's real awkward. Like, wait, you hated this too? Why didn't we know?
So some of the ways that you can make love magic. That sounds funny. You know, ways to change it. Yeah.
Make
So
love magic.
often reproductive matter was used.
Right.
So that could be menstrual blood, which was dried and powdered, which makes me wonder, like, did women just have a side gig? Like
Maybe.
once a month, you're like, I'm gonna make 10 extra bucks and like take like, and that's what you
Just
did.
collect this
Was
and
it a
dry it.
was there a divas cup for the
I don't know.
but it'd be French, it'd be really fancy, right? You know it would be like so in order to get your lover interested in you, you could sprinkle your dried and powdered menstrual blood over their food. I think it's going to give them a reaction. I don't know if it's going to be the one you're looking for, but you know.
I don't think I would get a sexy reaction, at least in modern times. I don't know about.
Yeah, so other reproductive material, breast milk, uh more fetuses, umbilical cords, consecrated afterbirth was used in a lot of love ceremonies, and they would add
That
in some
just
menstrual.
sounds like I don't want to be gross. That just sounds not sexy.
What, you don't think consecrated afterbirth is hot?
Anyways,
Well,
moving
I don't
on.
think like you ate the afterbirth and then fucked. I think like you like fed it to the person and then they fell in love with you because the afterbirth. I don't.
I'm sure that's what it is. It's just my head right now. That's just
Yeah.
not where it
Okay.
went.
So also, of course, if we have menstrual blood in women's stuff, we have men part. So sperm was often something that was used. If
Yeah.
you could get the sperm of the person that you were going after, that was even better. But that, that's kind of weird. Like if you're not already in love, like getting the sperm could be hard. Just saying. But very, you could have some adventures trying to acquire that.
Yeah.
So one of the other things I thought was interesting in love magic is this thing called hippomane, and it is the small black fleshy mass found on the forehead of a newborn foal. It's fucking weird. I looked this shit up. It's like this weird. It's like a weird black foam that like baby horses like get on their heads. Not all of them, but like they think it has something to do with just the proteins that are built up
Huh.
while you're making a horse.
While they're
And
being made.
while they're being made, like they just like it's kind of like an after thing, and then sometimes it's in their head and it's really squishy, and I don't want to touch it, but I do. Just want
I
to
don't want
know.
to touch it, but I have
But I
to.
have to. I have to know what it feels like. So they would mix that with blood, and then in
Ugh.
Voisin's grimoire, she had a warning that you have to be careful not to give too much, because instead of engaging the affections of the one you love, this could cause them to vomit furiously and even cause death, which would be
No.
counterproductive, right?
Yes.
All right,
It's a
love.
lot of body fluids.
It's a lot of body fluids, which typically that's sex and love, right?
I
Love is just a
guess.
lot of body fluid. So
Oh, love is a lot of body fluid. There's your
happy
quote of the night.
Valentine's Day.
Quote of the night.
We're gonna pick that on Valentine's Day card, so you guys to send to
Uh,
all your loved ones. So,
Ew.
love magic rites could be just lots of kneeling and praying with black candles. That was, just like they call that. I guess again, like prayers or spells. Like if you just say them like repetitively. So they were also do like
No.
spells over items and wax effigies. There were also complex magical ritual ceremonies. The riskiest being necromancy, which at that time meant conjuring demons, not the dead people think that we talk about today, right?
Hmm.
So being a necromancer required a grimoire and a great force of will to compel the spirits to obey your commands. The French believed ordained priests made the best necromancers, and they would wear their normal priest outfits while they were doing these ceremonies. According to the book of the conjurations, the conjuration of the demon Basher, possessor and master of hidden treasure. Oh no, we already talked about him, didn't we? Let's skip that and go to the amatory mass. So this is said over a naked woman. We talked a naked woman. We
Hmm.
talked about this the other day, and this is complete with like she gets a napkin across her stomach, she gets a chalice, all these things. And I'm pretty sure if these existed, they were excuses for priests to sleep with vulnerable women. There was a letter in 1680 in which a young woman went to a priest asking him, "How do I get men to fall in love with me?" And the priest said, "The best way is that we need to do this mass over your naked body," which he did. And then when it didn't work and she came back, he was like, "Well, maybe if we have sex afterwards and then it'll
Sure,
work
of course.
better." And then
That's the
she
key.
did it. So, but it still didn't work because, yeah. Uh,
Weird.
yeah.
Shocking.
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 It was said that an amatory mass was held in Voicennes for the Mademoiselle de Orleans, one of the that's gonna be a coughing fit. One of the
Oh,
Louis XIV
don't
Orleans.
choke. Don't choke.
So she was one of Louis XIV's mistresses, and so her and a man came to a priest at Voicennes' house in order to make the king fall in love with her. She put her menstrual blood in a cup, and then the man jacked off into the same chalice cup. And then the priest stirred in the powder of a bat into it. And then they said, now you take this paste and you put it on the king and he will love you. He didn't say how you put this paste of cum, menstrual blood, and bat.
And bat. I was like, this sounds like something Nadja would be really into.
I think she would be, but I also don't like. I feel like this is a consensual thing, right? If you're
Oh,
going
for
to put
sure.
powder of bat on me, you need to ask my permission. You can't just let me powder a bat. You know, it's
That's
just
the
not right.
problem. That's the one you have a problem with?
Moving on. Poison. Okay, so poison. So we talked last time about the toads. So Voisin milked toads of their venom. The toads were delivered
Milking toad venom?
milking toad venom, right? Which is basically just like because it comes out of their skin. So I think you're just like kind of
shaking
like
them?
shaking their skin, and so they would be
You're just
delivered
jacking off a
to
toad?
jacket off frogs, toads. So the toads were delivered in a large pot that was filled by her neighbor, Madame Vautier. That was Vautier's job. After their venom was collected, they were then wrapped in muslin and tossed alive onto the coals, and then they were cooked until they were crisp enough to be ground into a toxic powder.
Okay.
Other things
sad.
of poison, less gross, powdered diamonds. That was a popular poison at the time. Powdered, yeah, you just grind up diamonds and then you swallow them and then you die
And
because
your
you
poop
can't.
sparkled.
You sparkle though, but you die.
You died because it cut you? Is that the whole
It'll
thing?
cut you from the inside. Like
there was an R.L. Stein book or something, one of those Goosebumps R.L. Stein that I read like as like a young teenager that I'm scarred for life because they fed somebody ground glass to kill them like that slowly.
Yeah, that would also be an alternative. You couldn't afford the diamonds because the diamonds were so really expensive.
Oh,
People
yeah.
would give people ground glass. They also used arsenic, and that was something that was still undetectable by doctors at the time. Powdered arsenic was not as harmful as the liquid version because you could just mix that with liquids and people wouldn't know, right?
Ooh.
But instead of also doing that the way by the mouth, arsenic enemas were also very popular because they would cause the intestines to shrink and the victim to die from obstructed bowel, which was just a normal way that people died. So they wouldn't know that you shoved arsenic up their ass. Herbs were also popular. A shepherd known as Maître Pierre furnished many of the sorceresses with herbs like ergot, drue, and mandrake. There was also opium, hemlock, vitriol or sulfuric acid, flocely, which is a poisonous mushroom, aloe, and meadow buttercup, an herb that caused facial distortion so the victim smiles derangedly and dementedly while they die.
That's awful, but kind of fun.
It's awful, and it's probably I'm sure it's in a horror movie, but yeah, it's so they also use biting stonecrop and juniper, which cause digestive systems to go all wonky. The most highly undetectable toxin, the secret de crapa, crapa, it was famously used by the Marquise de Brinville, which I told you we're going to talk about her today. This is all we're going to talk about her because this stuff is too long. So, known for exorbitant cost, this toad-derived poison how you got it remains shrouded in mystery. Its recipe is carefully guarded. There was a woman named Menadier, and she said that if you took some salt and fed it to a toad, the toad would start to foam at the mouth. Then if you scrape up that foam and put it in an enema, the person who ingested the poison would die and nobody would know how, except for the fact that that person just had a toad enema. But beyond that, they would have no idea how this person died. A sorceress named La David put a live toad in a box and pierced with small holes. She would bury the box in a hole in the ground, and the ants would enter the box through the holes and then kill the toad. The toad and the ants, who would also die and not leave the box, maybe the toad killed them, I'm not sure. So then they take the toad and the ants, dry them up, and ground them into a powder. Francois Ballot, a soldier and son of Boss, claimed that he learned how to infuse a silver goblet so whoever drank from it died. He said, take a toad, whip it, and make it swallow arsenic, and then kill it in the cup or the silver vessel you want to poison, and then the toad's urine will form the poison. I mean, you also, there's a lot of process in there, and I'm just saying, if you're drinking from a cup with with a dead toad in it.
Right. That's a lot.
Yeah. Okay,
I
so
think you would notice.
final things on the poisoning, and this was something that was during the interrogations of the affaire de poison, and this was our favorite boss lady. You know, Voisin is the main character of this, but I think boss lady has some runner-up charm. So during questioning about powders found when her house was searched, Boss said the blue-green powder was cantharsis, and that maybe it was cantharidin, which is a poison made from blistered beetles secretion, or cantharsis, which is a Spanish
Hmm.
fly beetle, which I think is more likely because Spanish fly was very popular then. But she said it was for her corns. That brown powder, she was like, it's menstrual blood. Probably if I use that on my feet too, that's for my corns. She was like, I think
Oh,
I can
it's
ID.
multi-purpose.
It is multi-purpose. And she was like, I think that's some shrimp powder. Those look like fingernail clippings. Maybe that's some arsenic. That arsenic's not mine, though. That was Sharon's. Sharon brought it over when she brought me her toads. And I'm like, the toads are probably also for her quartz. So, Madame Sharon was a fruit vendor who broke her arm trying to avoid being captured. She admitted she went to the Palace Saint Germain because that is where her fruit stand was, but nope, she never sold poison. That powder was horse dander, used for the plaster to treat her arms. She was sentenced to burned alive after the question by Brodekins. The torture was accompanied by Monsieur Bazou. I just wanted to point out again that the doctor is dressed in a long black velvet gown, and I just really appreciate that imagery. So the
Can you
doc,
imagine that at a hospital now as everybody's like
yes,
swishing around and long? It'd be like Hogwarts.
it would be. I would much prefer long black velvet gown than white coats. I mean, think of how much shit you could hide on there too. You couldn't see any
Doesn't
blood
the
or
velvet
anything.
like get stuck? Don't things get like?
I bet they put on white
Ugh.
coats so people could tell that they were clean or not. I have a strong
Probably,
feeling that's why.
probably.
So he would be there to make sure that how far the torture could go, and a surgeon would be there to help her patch her back together. So, unfortunately, that was the end of Madame Charon, and that brings us to the end of Armour lore. I did tell you I was going to talk to you about different methods of torture, but we don't have enough time for that. And I feel like if you really want to know that stuff, you can look it up. And I would recommend, if you want to look up one from the Affair de Poisons, look up the water torture in Paris, France. And I'm just going to say it's not the water torture you think it is. It's really bad. So go look that up. And
Huh.
with that,
That's fun. Thanks for
that's
that.
fun. On a fun note, see, I didn't make you hear about it, Diana. I made other people go look it up. I spared you.
All right. More
All right. Well, cheers,
lore.
jerk.
Cheers, bitch.